Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another session of our Diversity in Dentistry Mentorship Mentor-Mentee Mixers. We are very fortunate today to have Dr. Lila with us. She always starts with us. And I just want to reiterate the whole purpose of the mixer is for us mentees and our mentors to understand the intricate details that is required for this whole process of like becoming a dentist. I know we have gone over working on your personal statement, how to build that relationship with your mentor. But one thing that I struggled with was understanding how much it cost. It cost a lot. And so the whole setup for these mixers is we on the background of diversity in dentistry, we come up with the ideas of what we think is important, and then we open it such that the rest of the mentees and the mentors can share ideas of what is important to know when it comes to that aspect that we're talking about. So for this week, we're talking about the money part. But if you want some feedback on how to build a better relationship with your mentor, on how to narrow down your school list, on how to figure out your personal statement, all of those are recorded on our YouTube page. So please make some time to go look over it. I have watched it several times, and each time I'm like, ooh, that is a good one. So without further ado, I'm just going to share some of the information that we think is important regarding the finances, because it was an eye-opener for me.
And as you're pulling that up, student Dr. Luma, who's now a D2 at Texas Tech, yay! I just wanted to say thank you again for hosting these mixers for us, especially being, going through the dental process so recently and now in dental school. Just all the information you're sharing is so valuable for our future dentists and our mentees. So thank you for doing this. I know you probably just want to rest after finishing all your finals and clinicals.
I know, and getting just 1 week of summer break.
Yeah. But I just quickly, since we had kind of a smaller group, do we mind just going around introducing yourselves, letting us know if you're where you are in your dental journey? I see a mentor. We have Dr. Fry. I can't wait for him to talk money too.
Yes.
So yes, I'm Dr. Haisha. I'm the founder and president of Diversity in Dentistry Mentorships and a board certified pediatric dentist. I have a private practice here in Tucson, and this brings me so much joy to be able to work with you guys along your journey, just nurturing our future dentists and making the future of dentistry so much brighter. So I see under Luma, well, Luma, go ahead and a quick intro, because I don't think you really introduced yourself.
Yes, my name is Luma, Luma Chenyi. I have worked with Dr. Haisha, I believe, since the start of diversity in dentistry. I am a very non-traditional student. So when I decided to go back to dental school, like my first try was horrible, was terrible in every aspect. And then I realized that I really did need someone that has been through it to guide me along. That's when I got in contact with Dr. Haisha, and I have worked with her. It works because I did get in, but I am on the board of I'm on the board. I am the secretary of the board, and I'm also in charge of programming and the mentor. Most of you have interacted with me because I send out the email for how you match. So I do the matching, and I do like the correspondence, just making sure the programming works as it should. And Dr. Fry is also on here with one of our amazing mentors. I love it.
Good morning, everybody. I am Evan Fry. I graduated from dental school, University of Illinois in 2021. This is my first one of these mixers I've had the chance to go to, which is great. I have a 4-year-old kid, so that just makes it hard with buying a practice and having a young family to have time for this. But that's the great thing about the mentor-mentee relationships with DID is it's very flexible to you and your mentee schedule. So I think one of my mentees is on today, which is great. So hey, Brittany. Yeah, that's it. So I'm not racially diverse. So I wasn't even sure if this was the right organization for me, because I don't want to take up space for someone who, could be a better mentor or a better fit for this kind of program. But Dr. Haisha, when I just randomly emailed her, because I saw info about this organization when she launched a nonprofit a couple of years ago, And she's like, we'll take anybody. And like you, Luma, I am a non-traditional dentist too. I worked in healthcare consulting and healthcare economics for a number of years before going to dental school. So I do have a perspective on that as well. I cannot tell you what it's like to be a person of color in dentistry or a woman, but I can tell you what it's like to be a non-traditional student and to switch careers and go into dentistry. So it's great to meet you all. And I also love talking about money.
Yeah. And that is just so essential. And that is a myth I am trying to debunk amongst our colleagues, that our mentees, they really don't care. I mean, it's like, I just need someone to really truly champion for me. We have such a network that we can share with them to expand. And just like you said, our perspectives can come from different ways that help anyone and everyone. And so really a shared value and a shared vision, and just having someone with that, a little bit of tough love and a little bit of compassion to help them succeed. So thank you for sharing that. More of our colleagues need to hear that. Okay, sorry. So let's pass it on to your mentee, Brittany. And if you can, we are giving away the DAT Destroyer. And it would be nice that we can confirm. So if you are in a position where you can turn on your camera, we really would encourage you to do so we can verify that we have registered mentees actually getting these resources for free, because that is a perk of being matched in our program. Okay. All right. Thank you. Brittany.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany, and I am a post-bac student. So I have one more class that I'm taking this summer. I actually started on Monday. I'm taking Physics 2, and I'll be done with my prereqs so I can start applying next year. So that's where I'm at in my process.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Anything else y'all needed to know, or was that it?
No, that's great.
Okay.
So are you studying for the DATs at this time?
It's a funny story. I had started to, and I couldn't keep up because I work also. So I started to put that on hold because I was working, trying to study for DAT and taking class. So I was like, this is like a lot. So I put that on hold. So I'm going to start back up in August because I'll be done with my classes at least. And sure. I'm going to be taking a little bit more time off of work. So that's my plan.
We're rooting for you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then Ashley.
Good morning. My name is Ashley. I live in Michigan. I'm a postgraduate student. My bachelor's and my master's is in biology. I've been a dental assistant going on 13 years this year. And I am going on my 10th year of teaching this August, a dental science class here in Michigan. Besides that, within my dental journey, I'm applying to dental school this cycle. I have my DAT set, so well wishes, please, and prayers. And I'll be taking it the first week of July, and I'm hoping to enter into the class of 2024 starting next year.
Congratulations. Thank you for sharing. I think the next person is Gilbert Romelos. Hi, Gilbert.
Hi, Dr. Luna. I'm just a student at Tuskegee University. I'm currently earning my bachelor's in biology. I'll be graduating this upcoming December. I'm a mentee of Dr. Gavelash, Dr. Miriam. So she invited me here to basically gain some extra knowledge. I'm an undergrad student, and I'm interested in dentistry. I'm looking to hopefully go to dental school the next cycle after I graduate, walk the stage in May of 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I have Crystal.
Hello. Nice to see everyone. My name is Crystal, and I did a post-bac, so I guess I'm in my gap year, postgraduate year. I also have my DAT planned to be scheduled in July. I'm waiting for a specific day to open back up, which I might just have to like get that go and take a day. But let's see. And I'm a dental hygienist, so I'm currently working in different offices, temping, trying to get experiences in different type of offices. And I'm sorry, I forgot. I don't know if I'm missing anything. I think that was the question. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. And we have Julie on here. She is the everything. She does everything. So Julie, if you don't mind, please introducing yourself. Julie, is she still here? She said she was not going to stay, so maybe she left already. But thank you all so much for the introductions and for the participation. As you all know, as part of this session, someone is actually going to win the DAT Destroyer. It's about $200 right now, but we'll get it to you for free. So I will encourage you all to participate because there are criteria for how we're going to pick the winner. So please participate because that might be included in how the winner is being chosen. But I'll go right into it about like budgeting. One thing I realize, I always try to start with a quote if you all have been at the other sessions. So the one for today is that beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship. There are so many little expenses when it comes to preparing for dental school or the application process that if you do not plan for it, it might actually sink your plans. It might be a hindrance, especially if you have to spend all that money at the same time. Because for me, this was the big thing for me that it took a while for me to put it together my second time applying because the DAT costs some money. And you're not just registering for the DATs, you're getting the study materials. The DAT Destroyer is excellent, but it's $200. The ADA, it costs a lot of money. It's $215 per school for the first school, and I think $110 for every other school. Every school that you apply for has a secondary application that costs money. The interview process costs money. Even when you do get accepted, it costs money. So if you isolate this cost, it adds up to an extent that it might be overwhelming. And to some people, like some people will tell you that was why they did not apply that year, they had to wait. So for like the DAT registration, this was interesting to find out the DAT right now costs $525 just for the registration. The cheapest study book on Amazon that I could find was $50. Crack that, which was the cheapest when I was studying for DAT. I think it was like $125. Now it's $300 for 3 months. DAT bootcamp is $500 for 3 months. And if you want to get the 9 months, you're looking at almost $1,000. And that adds up if you don't prepare yourself well enough and you need to retake. So it makes my heart feel good that there's several of you that are like taking your time to make sure you're ready to take the exam, because that cost, if you do not prepare well for the first time, you're going to spend that money again all over again. And it adds up. So just for the exam and exam prep and everything, that is clearly about $1,500. And then you now go to the application itself. The application is a whole job. I think it has like 4 sections with so much information that is needed. To turn it in is $250. Dr. Worrell is here. Hey, Dr. Worrell. Sorry. You're on mute.
Good morning, everybody. Aloha.
Aloha. He's having fun in Hawaii, so we're going to continue with what we are saying so I don't get jealous.
It's early.
Yes. And for the application process, because it is so complicated, not that it's complicated, it's very intricate. So there are companies that you can pay to do your transcript entry for you, to review your personal statement. If you're applying to Texas schools, I go to a Texas school. It is a separate application. Although it's cheaper, but it's a separate application that is $200 extra. So just the application and a year, if you try to think about it, that is another $1,500. So you're up to $3,000 already, and you don't have any guarantee yet that you're going to get accepted. And then the secondary applications. The average cost for a secondary application is $60. And it also has an AC. And it also has like something that you have to say that relates to the mission statement. So apart from that, how much it costs you financially, I would like for you to think how much it costs you in terms of your time as well. So the secondary application is your time and at least $60 for each school. And then the interviews. I was fortunate that I was interviewing in 2021. We still had some remote interviews. But right now, I believe most of those are in person again. So it is very exciting to get that email inviting you for an interview. But know that as soon as you get that email, you have about a month to buy a flight, to take off work, to get a hotel, to get the Uber, to figure out what you're going to be eating that evening and the day of the interview itself. It adds up. So some schools will have like students that might host you, but that is not always a guarantee. It is better to make your own accommodations of where you're going to stay, how you're going to get there at 8 a.m. in the morning, how you're going to get back to the airport in time. Otherwise, you're paying for another night at the hotel. And as I mentioned, you're losing work and school time as well. And then after you've gone through that for the interviews, say you get interviewed to 8 schools, you're doing that times 8. And then the acceptance camp. It is very exciting. When I applied, acceptance day was December 1st. But it's like, yay, you got in. Now you have to put in your deposit of $800 or $1,000 to reserve your seat. If you are just working hard to make ends meet, that is $800 or $1,000 to come up with in 30 days to pay. That does not count it was $1,500 for the DAT and study materials, right? And then about $1,500 for the application, since most people try to apply to about 8 to 10 schools. That is $1,500 right there. If you're trying to travel for your interview, you're looking at least $600 to $800 for each interview you go to, and then having to come up with that money for acceptance. I don't know who has been counting, but to me, when I was calculating it, you're looking at least $10,000 to $12,000 just for your application process. Nobody has that lying around. I know I did not. Nobody has that lying around. This is not saying that it is financially impossible, but I believe in planning ahead. I'm a mom of 3. I work, I run a house. If you plan ahead, give yourself enough time. If you plan, you will not have those little leaks that might sink your ship. That is what I had to share, and I'm going to open it for questions. So it was, as I have shared, that is just like highlighting, like putting that idea in your head for what to think about. The part that I want to share is that for the 10 to 15,000, that is a lot. That can seem overwhelming when you put it all together. There is a lot of help. There is the DAT waiver that you can apply for, but you have to be on top of it because it opens on January 1st, and by January 3rd, it's no longer available. So you have to try to make sure you're like one of the first people. Like after you ring in the new year, go apply for your waiver. There are programs like Diversity in Dentistry. Like I know for a year or two, we gave money to apply for an extra school. It is not just us, there are other people doing that. Look into those scholarships. Look into the scholarships, look into those waivers. I know ADA also has a waiver for, I believe they give you the waiver and you can apply to 4 schools. Look into that, apply for it in time. Like if you're planning on applying next year, now is the time to start working on your budget and looking for those discounts. Even if you think you don't qualify, even if you think your AC is not the best, turn it in. Like apply for everything. Like,
what are you doing?
Once I applied for everything. Dr. Worrell is like a great advocate for like the military scholarships. I went to I believe the page is called Black Dental Wall on Facebook. I went on there and I was like out there. I was like, I need help with this. Who has the resources to help? And we are fortunate that most of those people that helped me on there on diversity in dentistry mentorship on our social media. So please, not every dentist does one-on-one mentorship. Take advantage of that. Find the resources.
Just a reminder, just to mute your mute your mic. Not
so
you.
That is what I had to mute your mic. Yes, that is what I had to share. So I'm going to open it up for questions now. And we have Dr. Fry, who is very big about financing, and Dr. Worrell, who is very big about military scholarships and how to get stuff free. So please ask away.
Yes. Can I just give a couple comments first? So Luma, that was number one, super helpful, because I know my mentors, or I've wanted to like have some of those numbers for my mentors. And I was applying for dental school in 2017, like was the fall I was applying. And even back like this 5 years ago, I don't remember what those numbers were. I just knew it was a lot of money, but then I know it always goes up every year too. So I really appreciate you having the like current numbers for it. And it is like, it's nickel and dime, but hundreds and hundreds of dollars at a time. So I kind of had a unique perspective too, as I studied biochemistry and economics in college. And so I was very much like looking at the dollars and opportunity cost and stuff. So here is kind of how I approached it. And I think a good way for many of you to think about it, especially since you haven't started your process yet. So for me, some of these costs you can't get around, right? You have to pay XYZ for the DAT. You have to pay the application fees. You have to go travel for interviews. But there are some costs that are under your control, and those are the ones that you should really focus on. Because I was very tight budget. I'm still a very cheap person. And I think if you want to run a business and be successful as a dentist, you have to be thrifty. Not necessarily cheap. You don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. That's something my dad taught me. But you have to be aware of what it costs and what you're giving up by spending a lot of money on something, because you can't get loans for this stuff. Like in dental school, you can just take out the maximum number of loans. But for this, you can't get a loan. So unless your parents or your spouse has a lot of money, or you get like a personal loan or put it on credit cards, which I would not recommend, this is coming out of your pocket. So control the costs that you can control. So for me, for example, I spent zero on DAT prep. I did well in undergrad, and I went to the library, the Chicago Public Library where I was living, and they had 2 old edition DAT books. And I got them, and I had 2 weeks to study for my DAT because I stopped working at my consulting job on July 31st, and my DAT was like August 14th. So I went to the library and I used those books, and I did fine. And so I think, all these companies that are selling prep are trying to sell you something, right? And just because one costs $500 doesn't mean it's necessarily the best. Or just because you buy 3 of them doesn't mean you're going to have time to use all of them, because they all teach you the same thing, whether it's a free book at the library. Like biomedical science has not changed. Certainly make sure if you're using older materials that they're up to date with any format of the exams that have changed. Like I know when I was applying to dental school, the MCAT for medical school had changed format. There was a new section. So obviously you would want to have the latest and greatest format of the test, but this material is not new. And if you did well in your post-bac or your undergrad, you shouldn't need to be studying hours and hours every day for months to do well on the exam, to do well enough. That's the thing. So just because you spend more doesn't mean that it's better. And that is something that you should keep in mind all throughout dental school in your life, is just because it costs more doesn't mean that it's better. And then the second one is when you're applying to schools, which is great, I would really encourage you to be selective about what schools you apply to. So obviously you want to apply to enough that you can get in. But then again, as far as things that are under your control, how good your grades are and how good your DAT score is under your control. And so if you go in with good grades and a good DAT and good letters of reference, you should know your odds of getting in. And so for me, when I was looking to apply, I only applied to public schools because I knew that I couldn't afford to go to some of these private dental schools that will cost $1 million to graduate from. And my number one, so I was in Illinois. Illinois has 2 state schools, Southern Illinois University and University of Illinois in Chicago. So those were my number 1 and my number 2 because they were by far the cheapest. There is a private school in the suburbs of Chicago that costs $700,000 a year to go to. I didn't even apply because I knew that I couldn't afford to go there, even if I got in. And so I think, you know, some people will apply to 30 schools because they want to try to get in somewhere. But like Luma said, each one of those applications is money, and interviews is money and time. And then you have to be smart about deciding where to go. You know, I was lucky enough to get into every school I applied to, so I had a choice. But I also worked hard to have that choice. And so control what you can control and really think about when you're deciding whether to apply or whether to attend a school, how much it is going to cost you. And that's not just tuition, that's living expenses, and that's loops, and that's books and everything. And that's a whole nother meeting, is like how to save money in dental school, because that's another important topic, but be thinking about that too.
I'm glad you brought that up, because our last mixer was about like narrowing down your school list, because we had a webinar where we had a situation where someone was trying to apply to about, I think, 20 schools and was having an issue, especially with the finances. So we have a whole webinar, which I mentioned at the start, that you can go watch on YouTube, where it was like, okay, you have to figure out what you can afford and what you cannot afford, and how to like narrow it down, which you hit on like almost every point we talked about on that mixer. And like what you trying to stay in state, looking at the location, looking at housing costs, looking at all of that. So that so it was like after that now that we've worked with people that are applying this year, we had a question come up about people that are planning on applying, because I don't think a lot of people, a lot of like juniors in college right now are thinking, I'm going to apply to dental school, and they don't know what it involves, which was why we chose to do this one next, of like, okay, this is what you need to plan for. And talking about like buying like study materials. For me, I use DAT Boost. I use Booster. I think it was Booster, and it was like their first year. It is, at this point, it is a lot of peer pressure. On like almost every firm you go to, you see people talking about, what are my chances? I got a 26 and I did this and I did this and I did this. In as much as Dr. Jared Williams always says, the whole process is a mindset thing. In as much as you might have trained your mindset not to be affected by that, if you're studying from a Kaplan book, and on all your firms that you're trying to look for, community firm, and everyone is talking about 24, 25, believe me, the pressure is there to go buy one of these systems to see how you rank before you do it. But I am like a strong advocate. I only use DAT Booster. I borrowed somebody's DAT bootcamp for a few exams. I have a really, really old version of DAT Destroyer, but I do understand where the pressure might come from to try to find other resources, because if I am applying this cycle and everyone I see is getting a 25, I might think I need a 25 as well to be competitive, which might push me to go buy some resources that I don't need. But that cost, as Dr. Fry mentioned, it is up to you to control what you can control. And as far as your flight, your interview, your secondaries, there is really not much you can do about those.
Except for applying to schools that are closer, right? So I only applied to Midwestern schools, and, you know, choosing to drive versus fly if you have a car, choosing to stay at a cheaper hotel further away from, you know, obviously you want to make sure you can get to the school on time and stuff, but yeah, these are just, control what you can control.
Control. I see Crystal has her hand up,
but I don't know. Sorry, wait.
But I don't know if Dr. Worrell would like to share first before we go to questions, or where he go?
Okay, it wasn't necessarily a question. It was just some really good advice that Luma gave me one of my first Zooms that I attended. She mentioned something about every week or every month, just put $5 or $10 away. And then by the time it comes time to apply, like, it's better to start that in your pre-dental journey than like wait all the way up until applications open. Now you're scrambling. And ever since then, I've just been putting a little bit away. And I feel like if I had that advice when I was a pre-dental student, I wouldn't even be stressing about like, okay, I got to take a school off because I can't afford this application, or like, So I think that was really great advice. So I just wanted to reshare from that previous Zoom meeting.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
great. We should actually have all our mentors kind of mention that to their mentees. Yeah,
Yes.
like where they are and in pre-dental or their undergraduate year, and then you can kind of reverse engineer how many weeks you need to save up for that amount. Like, this amount, this is how much you need to save keeping up. So thanks for reminding us about that, Crystal, and thanks for sharing that with our Luma.
Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, Gigi. Hey, Crystal. Yeah, no, just to reiterate what Dr. Fry said, I think that was solid advice. You have to control what you can control. And yeah, that's your grades, and then also your choices and your decisions about schools. I was just thinking about that last webinar that we had where, Dr. He said, I'll never forget it because it stuck up for me. He said that he applied to 20 schools like it was nothing, but everybody's not in that situation, and so I think there's everything that the presentation, the parts that I saw, and everything that Dr. Fry said was just spot on. So, and that's the front end. I also talk about the back end, so I'm a big proponent of trying to get scholarships, from the schools directly, the military, National Health Service Corps, Indian Health Service. There's a plethora of different scholarship opportunities on the back end as well, because then two things I'll also say. Usually we joked around in grad school. I'm not going to still saying, but maybe everybody's heard this before. C equals DDS, meaning to a certain extent, like, well, on the one hand, it doesn't really, for the most part, it does not really matter where you go to school. For the most part, all patients are going to know is that you have that DDS or DMD, right? And what they really care about is how you treat them, how you make them feel. And very rarely the patients ask, well, where did you go to school? Like, as though they're going to use that as a decision factor on whether you're going to see them, they're going to see you as a patient. And then the other thing that I like to say is that very rarely, most people do not pay off their loans within 4 years. And I'm just coming from the back end for the standpoint of the scholarships, opportunities out there. Usually they have a payback of 4 years, whether that's military or National Health Service Corps. So you can do that, you do your payback, and then you're free if that's what you want to pursue. So that's all I have to say on this. But great, solid advice all around.
And Luma, thank you, Dr. Worrell, that's so helpful. I was gonna just confirm for sure, no schools are gonna allow remote interviews going forward? Wait,
I know some schools are. I've been to a couple info sessions where they're making it optional. Okay. Some of them are staying fully in person, some of them are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, I mean, I would say, I think being there in person is going to be an advantage for you. So if there's an option, reach out and figure out a way to get there. Because there's just certain cues that you can't get and the interviewer can't get from you being on a screen. There's just a limitation to it. Just sometimes even being in the office and you just see something, a picture or a certificate that you can find some common ground that can break the ice and you can open up that conversation to make it flow more organically. So my advice will always be to go in person. So I just wanted to see what the status was on that interview.
And I do know that some people have like that bias that they feel like if you actually showed up, it meant more to you than if you're doing it remote. It's a struggle to get them to understand that it has to do with finances, because people that can afford it will show up. But if you cannot afford it and you don't show up, it almost gives that impression that it wasn't important enough for you to show up.
Sadly, that's true. You're right. You can think about that. what other ways can you suggest on saving, budgeting?
As I shared with Crystal, for me, it was like putting a little aside at a time. But my situation is different because I do have a family. As soon as I stop paying daycare for one of my kids, as soon as I stop paying daycare, I put that daycare money towards my application. So I had to plan for almost 3 years to come up with the money to apply in that time. But for me, it was like redirecting that daycare money and not updating my car as I wanted. Those are the updates that I needed on the house. And I put that towards my application. And like the whole moving and everything, like because I knew the school I wanted to go to was not the one in Dallas. I knew I wanted to go to El Paso since it was a new program, all digital, all of that. So I knew for sure that in that time I might have to find different housing, so for me, I planned for that. But I could do that because I had worked at my job for 15 years. I could restructure money from that. But for a lot of my classmates that I met in my pre-dental society, it was like, instead of hanging out that Friday, pick up a shift. Instead of, nobody wants to work at the school library, go take that shift. You're sitting there and you're studying and getting that extra money, whatever. Like, I do understand we need rest, but it is easier to sacrifice for a little time for a long-term gain than to have that constant. Like if it's going to take you that one semester of picking up that extra shift at Applebee's, of working till 7 o'clock at that dentist that is open till 7 o'clock, that extra $15, it's going towards this application thing. Like I'm not saying buy what was that name? I'm not saying buy Dogecoin and make 5,000 in a day. That is not feasible. I'm saying find like the little things that are realistic to do that will not add too much of a strain to you, and do it and squirrel that money away. It might seem very minute, but if you're saving just that $20 a week, you're looking at least $600 at the end of the year. That gives you that leeway or that little flexibility and reduces the stress.
Yeah. I mean, just like it's priorities, like how you prioritize your time. Like you're going to nose to the grind and you're focusing on studying for the DAT. You have to prioritize your finances. So maybe not going out to lunch or eat, and packing up your lunch for school, and not getting that extra Dutch Bros or Starbucks and stuff. I mean, it is tough, but if unless you write it down, it's easy to say, but unless you're like, this is how much I need this month, then you're going to see it add up. And and like you say, you have that vision for the better good of your life. Is you have to invest in it now by sacrificing some time and budgeting and financing so that you can succeed. Like, I mean, it's true. We can definitely do it, but it just takes some planning.
It takes a lot of planning and time, because we do have that session coming up about like financing during dental school, because I think it's important to understand how much it costs before, but this is very minor compared to during. Because this is 4 years.
But it still matters. It still matters, right? Because it's a mindset that you get yourself into. And yeah, you have to get into dental school first. So don't pick up so many extra shifts that you don't have time to study for the DAT, right? Like you have to find a balance. So that's where there are a lot of expensive mistakes you can make. And so if you can avoid making those expensive mistakes, then that's less money you have to get in the first place, right? So like a huge one is, do not take the DAT more than once if you don't need to. You should go into the DAT saying, I'm going to take it once and I'm going to study as hard as I can. And then I'm going to be done. And I'm going to be happy with what I got. And obviously things can happen that day. You could be sick. You could have a family emergency. But I think it really helps to say, I'm going to take the DAT by this date and I'm going to take it once. And it is going to be my best effort, because A, that's going to motivate you to study more and to study smarter. And then B, it's not going to be this, if I don't do so well, I can always take it again. Because that's more review classes, more time to register, more time off of work. So, I'm a big proponent of that. And then like, if you do need to reschedule your date, because I know I looked at that because my timeline was so tight, the sooner you reschedule, it is better to reschedule for a later date than to take it and not do good and then have to pay to take it again. But if you are having to reschedule for whatever reason, the more in advance that you can reschedule the DAT, the cheaper it is. I think it, like for me, and again, this is a number of years ago, it was like if it was more than 60 days out, it was like $50 to reschedule. Versus if you were rescheduling like within a week or two, it was like over 100. And so again, I would set your date deliberately and plan your other schedule around making that date be successful for you. But if you do need to reschedule, and you should know, like if your studying is not going well, or if your classwork is too much, you should know well in advance. So if you do need to reschedule, you do it enough in advance so you're paying less than you would otherwise.
So I really like what Dr. Price said. You know, I like to think of it as like strategic thinking. You know, you just really write everything down ahead of time. Let's know how much you're looking at. And then you just strategize every aspect of it like way ahead of time. You know, because I mean, so for me, I remember back in the day, I knew I wanted to dentist from early in undergrad, and so I always believe in trying to do things to automate it. So for me, like, in terms of income, I was an RA. I was in school.
Of course you were. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, because guess what? I'm going to live in the dorm anyway. I'm going to I'll be hanging out anyway. So I was an RA, so that was taking care of tuition and stuff like that. And then a teaching assistant, which only helps me to learn the material that I'm teaching better, because teaching assistant, worked in the alumni office, calls, I don't know if that's still a thing, I think probably still is, but, calling alumni to beg them for money, There's a lot of simple jobs you can do around the school that don't take up a ton of time. Like even at the call center, I can still study at the call center, in between calls, I have a book right there and calling and still looking at stuff. And then also like in terms of strategy, and this was brought up in the last webinar, it seems that probably your best time to take the DAT or to look into at least consider taking it is after you've done oral or organic chemistry. And that seems to be one of the most challenging courses for people. So again, strategizing when you're going to take it, so I think that's good.
I love the tools. Can you guys, and yes, open up the floor to questions. I was just thinking of what would be helpful for them to take back with them as far as budgeting or tracking your expenses. Did you guys just do a straight Excel sheet? Did you use an app? What would you recommend? And mentees too, if you are already using something that works for you, share it with your fellow mentees.
I just use an Excel spreadsheet. I think if you all have heard what I'm saying, I'm going to do it cheap and do it free if I can. So just Excel, you can, if you had a line item expense for dental school, DAT registration, this much, airfare, this much. I know there's like, Mint and personal finance apps and stuff. But even for my personal budget, when I was working and now, the simpler, the better. And like, I'm also a pen and paper guy. So you can also just like have a notebook. I took all my notes in dental school on pen and paper. And it's really, I think writing stuff down, there's a lot of research about like writing a goal down or writing an expense down. Like you really feel it when you write that you spent $500 on the DAT versus just another, line on your credit card statement. So I think writing it down and simpler is better. You don't necessarily have to track every single nickel and dime, but you have to know, is my bank account going up or down? Am I going to need to find more money, or do I have enough to cover this in that way?
Mm-hmm. And go ahead, Dr. Royal, were you coming on?
Yeah, so I was going to say, I'm a pen and pad kind of guy myself, but there are, as Dr. Fry said, there's Mint. There's another app called YNAB. You need a budget. It's an actual app that you can get as well that you can utilize. Of course, Excel spreadsheets. And I don't know if this was discussed before, but perhaps another strategy you could have is so you have your main bank account. Just set up another bank account, a linked bank account, and that's you're just shoveling your money into. Hopefully, there's a little bit of a higher interest rate, but you're shoveling your money into monthly directly to your dental school savings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm going to share something very kind of personal and vulnerable here. I grew up in a family, single parent mom, 2 sisters, and I was just not taught to budget. It was really living paycheck to paycheck for my mom and my family. And so I want to say, if anyone here or listening to this later, and you're just like, there's just no way I can do it because I don't have any money to put away, I would say now I really wish I learned back then, because it will follow you throughout your life. So things were going on the credit card. I was trying to help the family. And so, you know, and our motto was like, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I've never been a planner. I've just kind of figured it out. And then it almost really hurt me by not being able to get a loan from my first private practice. And I was like biting my nails, worried that if I was going to get this loan or not, because of the amount of debt that I had, high recurring credit cards. So it's a mindset thing and how you prioritize. I know I said that earlier. It's just what is important to you. And you're going to have to let some things go. And you're also going to have to let some generational things go. Okay. Got to break that cycle, guys. You can do it. It is expensive, but it is possible. There are resources out there. You need to go ahead and really look at ADA. I'm on the task force for eliminating barriers for underrepresented groups. They are looking to build a repository so we can find the resources that are giving out, you know, these scholarships, and also ways of getting more DAT exams to prepare for if you qualify. So when in doubt, just ask, but you have to do the work. You have to look and become a pre-dental member of ADEA. So go onto their sites and see what resources they're having, and talk to your mentors and tell others they need to get a mentor. Because I have been in a position where I've helped out a mentee, and I'm not saying this is a requirement for any mentors to do it. And it's only, but here's the thing. You have to build a relationship with your mentor, all right? You're not gonna come in, tell me how to do this, help me do this and do that. You guys have to build a relationship. This is what it's all about at Diversity in Dentistry Mentorship. So I wanted to show you that I'm standing here saying that I got through it, really living paycheck to paycheck, but it was a lot harder than it needed to be. And that is another reason why most of my colleagues are here as mentors, is because we don't want you to have to figure it out the hard way. Oh. So I know we want to stay within the hour. Any other questions? But I know, Luma, we have something to give away.
I think Gilbert had a hand raised, as well as Crystal. So I'll let Gilbert go first.
Thank you, Dr. Luma. Actually, you guys have kind of answered the questions as you guys are talking. So I was really going to go into the budgeting, but in the apps, but I was taking notes. So thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, Crystal.
Yes, I was just gonna add in. I think, well, first, Dr. Haisha, I have a similar situation to yours, like family-wise. So it's very inspiring to hear like your story about making it through that. So that's inspiring to hear. And then I also just wanted to mention one thing that I didn't know when I was first looking into the applications and all that, was that each school, apart from ADSAS, has their own fees they want you to send to them. And at first I didn't realize that. I thought like, okay, I could just do my first school and then my other designation and it'll be fine. But each school has a certain amount that you have to specifically send to them. So I just wanted to remind people to factor that into the budget, because the little $50, $60, $80 here adds up really quick. So just kind of keep that in mind.
And also all the information and the numbers on the PowerPoint are available to you all. If you ask for it, I can send it to you. Because I think it's really important to like have that figure, like, because for me, like putting down that figure was like, whoa, this is what I have to plan for. It is important to have that, but those are the figures that, not that I use, but that is like what most people that I talked with use. You have to come up with your own number and your own thing that works for you. Like Dr. Fry shared that he did DoorDash, even in dental school. I have classmates that are still doing DoorDash. Figure out your own number and figure out what works best for you. But it is really important to have that mindset now, because as Dr. Lila has shared, as I will share as well, like if you don't have that mindset now, like you need that mindset for your application. You need that mindset during dental school. You need that mindset after. And money is, talking about money is something that people are still very iffy about, which for me, it should be like really open, because if I made a mistake there, I don't want you making that same mistake. But people are very iffy about money, but I am inviting you all to know that we have a lot of mentors here that are willing to talk about it with you. The first time I applied to dental school, I made a lot of mistakes that by the second time I was applying, talking with Dr. Lila, like she will share with you, like to go take my DAT, I did not think I was ready. And she was like, go, you're ready, you've got this. I took my DAT after like the first snowstorm thing in Dallas and everything was out. And that Friday, she was the one telling me, she's like, you're ready, go do this. And I'm like, no, not me. But if it was just me on my own, I would have spent that money to try to move it. So you need to, aside from, because I mentioned that you're not just building the finances, you're building your time and you're building your mindset. And it helps to have people that can help you build each of those, because one cannot work without the other. You need all of them.
Last thing on mindset, there's a quote out there, and I'm going to try to paraphrase, but it essentially says, the greatest predictor of success in any endeavor, is essentially long-term planning. So yes, again, for mindset in everything, and as everyone else has said, this is stuff that will affect you for the rest of your life. So you know what, you think of the whole dental school's application cycle as an opportunity to start to build some really good discipline and some great tools that you can use for the rest of your life, because it's going to translate to while in dental school. And then, because maybe start, when I was in dental school too, I had jobs in dental school too. It's possible. I was smart about it. I worked in the lab. I used to get $20 for an orthodontic cast, and then I also worked in the alumni center when I was at school too, tall enough alumni. So that's how I learned how dentists can be very, very generous and some very cheap. But I'd like to talk about that stuff later. But it's a mindset, and it will help you throughout the rest of your life.
Okay, we are at the top of the hour, and I'm really trying to make sure we respect everyone's time. So if you do have any other questions, I believe most of you have my email. It's secretary@diversityindentistry.org. As I have invited everyone, even if you're watching this after, please take advantage of our social media. And I am like extra excited because we finally have TikTok.
We're moving in there. We're getting to Gen Z. We got to get you to
yes. Please do take advantage of all our social media, because I will share. It helped me a lot. It helped me a lot. Like I will go on there on any forum and put, but because the worst thing that can happen is that no one will respond. The best thing that can happen is that everyone will respond and you get more information than you need.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, join the Facebook group, guys, because that is where you can get just a multitude of, different perspectives and advice and directions to different resources that even we don't know about. So, and there are admissions committee members in that group, and we will try to bring them into some of our mixers as well, and deans and past deans of dental school. So yeah, ask a question in the group. Let's get it engaged and get it, just able to help more people.
Okay, and one of the highlights for this one for me, because I still do have my really, really old copy. Oh. This is the DAT destroyer that I use. It says 2014.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to take a screenshot. Oh, heck, that didn't work. Did I lose you guys?
No, you're still here.
Oh, well, I did the wrong thing. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, but for today, we are actually giving away the updated version, the 2023 version. And we have a system in place for which of the mentees are going to win. Dr. Fry, you ready?
I'm ready. Tell me what to do.
Dr. Fry is going to choose a number from 1 to 4. we have the attendees assign numbers from 1 to 4, and Dr. Fry is going to choose the number since everyone that attended does need can use the book at this time.
And he doesn't know the number assigned. It's random, so just so you know.
Yes.
Pick your favorite number.
So, are you ready?
1 to 4, choose a number.
Okay, I'm gonna pick 4 because my son is 4 years old. Sorry.
Okay. I sent you the list, Dr. Laila. So
oh wow, this is a orchestrated operation. All right, number 4 goes to Crystal.
Oh my goodness, I am so grateful. Thank you guys so much. That's going to be very helpful because that's going to be very helpful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, we're so grateful to Orgaman and their generosity in donating that. We hope to have them every week as some type of DAT resource. Yes. But you're so great. We're so grateful to be able to offer that to you, and you're so deserving. We're ready for you to join the profession. So hurry up and
as I shared, I used it. It is really helpful, extremely helpful. And Dr. Laila and I are going to decide how to. I use this version for 2020, for the 2020 DATs. So it is still useful. As Dr. Fry shared, there is still information even from older books. So Dr. Laila and I are going to decide how to get some of these resources to those of you that need it.
Thank you so much again. Oh my goodness, I'm so thankful.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Yes.
I had a quick question. What is the face